Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pasch podcast. Let's get started with your host, Brian Pasch.
Hi, this is Brian Pasch, and welcome to another exciting podcast interview. With me is Ben Chodor, CEO of CallRevu. Today, we're going to be talking about their customer-centric focus, breakthroughs in AI with training, the integration of the latest technologies from their acquisition, Interactive Tel. And so, Ben, let's get to it. How has it been since the acquisition, and how's that integration of these two excellent companies working together?
The integration has been fantastic. It's two like-minded companies that came together with this obsession for our customers. What we kept on hearing from customers before the acquisition is, how do we start tracking every call? What do you know about phone systems? Which ones do you recommend? So we got this auto-centric phone system, and now we can track every call. Because before this, we were all about sales, service calls. Now we can take every call and give incredible data back to the customer. So it's broadened us. And we already had 5,000 customers. Now we have the 5,000 customers we had pre-acquisition, and we could walk in there and offer them the phone system and the total track box, which we're calling capture, so we can capture every call and give them back useful data to make decisions.
Well, one of the things that we really loved about the new synergy and the new vision you're bringing to the company is your support for large dealer groups who have a customer data platform. And I just want to call out that as I've been consulting with the Morgan Auto Group on their CDP, getting those calls, every call, into the CDP associated with the customer of record was really important. And man, your team worked on that integration, and we are effectively in near real time updating the CDP with every call and the outcome of those calls. Let's talk about that vision, real-time insights on how every call was handled, what the call was about. What are some of your clients doing, say, outside of Morgan, with that type of tech platform and those type of insights?
Well, there's three key things. One is they know how their employees are engaging with customers. Like, what is the customer intimacy? What is the customer journey? So they're learning, and they're also learning what are the questions that customers are asking, so they can share that information. And it's super valuable. Because we're giving them all the data, they can actually know why during the hours of like 3 p.m. and 4 p.m. do 25% of the inbound calls end up in voicemail? Why? And at that point, do we send it to a BDC, or do we tell people they can't take a break at that time? They get to now look at their operation and go, how can we do it better? So those are two. And then the third is, how do you run a business in today's world if you don't know what the voice of the customer is saying? And being able to hear what every single customer is saying on every call and what's important to them, and how much more knowledgeable customers are when they call now, especially to buy a car. Where the old days, they would call and say to a Honda dealer, what Hondas do you have in stock? Now they're going to call into a Honda dealer and they're going to say, I saw on your site you have this car. I saw it across the street for less money. What are you going to do about it? And they could answer, and they're just much more intelligent. And then also when calls go bad, it enables them, because we have these alerts, it allows managers to know, hey, I need to jump in. I'm going to call that customer right now. So it just creates that whole customer-centric organization that we all want to be.
Ben, one of our colleagues, John Klavenasher, from Impel, made a comment the other day at a conference we were speaking at. He said, AI does a great job of crunching large sets of data, those mind-numbing tasks. So let me ask you a question. In the future, do you see AI looking at all the data that you're capturing, right? Every phone call, every time of day, length of call, what the call was about by department, what was the outcome, and letting AI recommend, operational changes. I know scoring of individual employees is part of any call measurement platform, but what about looking at, weeks and weeks of data? You mentioned a trend in the afternoon. I assume that that's based on data you're seeing, but how do we help a general manager get better? Do you see AI being used in your platform to crunch all that data?
It already is. It's just some dealerships look at what we call tracking as just a way of saying, how are my individual employees doing? How can Bob be better? Why are his numbers low? Why are Steve's numbers high? Why is Sally the best? Why is this customer unhappy? So they look at it as moments in time. And what they have to start doing, and some of our clients is taking all the data and what are we learning trend wise? What are we learning? What advertising is working the best? When we do this, when we say this to customers, why do our appointment scheduling go up higher? When we say this, why do we end up selling more? When we say this, why do customers end up writing really good reviews about us? I think it's like right now, the table stakes is you have to, it doesn't matter if you're using us for call tracking, it doesn't matter who you're using, take the data and you should be looking at it as one of your business points. That is the most valuable, one of the most valuable commodities you have. And I think 75% of the dealerships don't use it to its fullest. They're using it amazingly, but they're not using it to the fullest. The other thing we're finding is because we work with a lot of OEMs, for the first time, OEMs are asking us a lot about the calls and the data and the aggregate data so they can actually make decisions, which when I joined a year ago, no OEM was asking about. And now every OEM that we're working with is asking us about the calls. So all of a sudden, calls are really important to them.
Yeah, and since CallRevu has a robust API, as I mentioned, every call is being updated in near real time in the Morgan CDP, which is giving us unprecedented opportunities to engage, to change our marketing strategies, to move people from one audience to another. In fact, we get data from the DMS at night. We don't have to wait to know that someone booked a service appointment over the phone because we get that outcome in real time. So I have another question then. If data is king and more of your large dealer group customers will be connecting their CDP with CallRevu, how about when customers call and let's just say I'm talking to you, you're my salesperson. What about auto routing based on patterns? Like, so you and I have had 3 or 4 calls. Now I call back again instead of hitting a receptionist or a phone tree. Do you see a day where the phone system would say, welcome back, Brian Pasch, kind of like my United or Delta? I see you were talking with Ben. Would you like to be connected with him? Where are we with smart routing?
We're basically there. It is one of the things that we're going to be talking a lot more about as we go into the end of the year and to beginning of the new year. Because look, as a multi-million miler on United, it does feel good when I call a line. They go, "Hey Ben, how are you? Thank you for being a million miler." I mean, I still keep on pressing 0 to get to an attendant because I want to talk to someone, but understanding why I'm calling and who I'm calling, understanding that, hey, Ben's probably calling again because it's been about 4 months and maybe he's got another 15 or 20,000 miles and it's time for another oil change, right? Or, oh my God, he's in month 40 of his lease and his lease is coming up. Is it time for me to maybe starting to look for a new car? I think that's where the technology is, but it's where it's truly going. And that's how I think more and more dealerships are going to be using it. I mean, it's just a natural progression in the technology.
Well, one of the other things I want to just give a shout out to is your support of the Automotive Standards Council specification for GA4, sending events into GA4 from online click to call or online advertising. The industry is working out the bugs with GA4, trying to get everything together. I do want to thank you and your team for working with me and the council to really help improve digital marketing outcomes, because dealers really need to understand that the number one way in which consumers convert from digital advertising is the phone. And Ben, you and I were just, speaking at the Digital Marketing Strategies Conference, and we both said the same thing, that dealers can't afford not to have call tracking in place if they're doing Google advertising, because it's the number one conversion channel. So, one of the things that I've been doing, Ben, and I'm coming out with a new paper, is just showing how to configure Google Ads properly. We're seeing about a 35% performance improvement. And one of the biggest contributors to that is getting phone conversions into the bidding signals. It's amazing. 2024, Ben, I would say 30 to 40%, maybe even higher, of the dealers who are heavy spenders of Google Ads are not integrating their call outcomes.
It makes no sense to me. And I think part of it is a lot of industries. Look, when you're buying something from Amazon, you're not calling about it.
Right.
People forget, auto is one of the two biggest purchases people are going to make, and you're still going to eventually make a phone call. And when you're calling, and you're so much more educated now, it's like almost money if they're calling. And
That's right.
So it's more important. And even on your panel, I said, is the data we heard is for every one form that's filled out on Google, 4 click to calls. That is a mind-boggling number, because during COVID, I just want to fill out forms, send me lots and lots of information. Now we're back to our busy lives. I want to talk to someone, and I want to make a deal, and I want to get done and move forward. So if you're not answering your phones and you're not knowing what's going wrong or right, it's table stakes.
Right. And I just want to say one more time, in case any of the dealers listening or agencies, for the dealers, if you're spending tens of thousands of dollars of Google advertising a year and you do not have call tracking, you are wasting probably 10x what the platform costs. Dealers spend money on Facebook advertising. Dealers, listen to me. The new Facebook API allows you to bring call conversions into the bidding optimization. There's no excuse. And for the agencies who know they're only bringing in lead forms and maybe chats and not phone calls because the dealer didn't want to spend the money, I think it's your moral obligation to really educate them. And if you can't sell it, then get Ben on the phone. But
Yes.
under those circumstances, should an agency be running tens of thousands of dollars of digital marketing a month or a quarter, knowing that the phone call signals are not being used to optimize Google and Meta? Shame on you. You're at risk of losing your client, especially if we're talking about a 35% improvement in performance.
Exactly.
Talking about improvement in performance, Ben, we know that your customers, my customers, are always going through challenges on how do I train new employees to properly communicate on the phone? How do I train them how to ask questions that keep the conversation going, and how do I ask for the sale? Everyone's tried different ways, whether it's like, hey, watch this video or play this game. Let's just say most of them have fallen short. Bringing a sales trainer in is good for a month or two, and then people fade out. What is CallRevu doing to offer a breakthrough? Because when I heard about it, I was like, wow, yes, that's exactly a more sustainable path to help train employees about how they talk with customers.
Well, I have 2 quick analogies about it. One is, there's this saying, one exec said to another exec, why are you spending so much money training your employees if they're all just eventually going to leave. And the comment the other executive said is, what happens if I don't and they stay, right? Like they're not trained. And then the other thing is, in all sports, there's the Malcolm Gladwell from Outliers, the 10,000 hour rule. Like Michael Jordan, 10,000 free throws before he was, an expert at shooting. Same thing in golf, same thing in baseball. And we're like, how do we enable salespeople, service people, even people in F&I? How do we enable them just to get better? And watching a video is not the same. All of us who speak at conferences, we pretend and we speak in front of a mirror before we do it, and we practice it. If you're going to do a keynote, you're going to practice and practice and practice, but it's really a one-to-many. What happens when there is the interaction? So we said, what happens if we build a batting cage for employees? And what we call it is TestTrack. So it sort of plays into auto, but it's a two-way AI with unlimited amount of scenarios and playbooks that you could put into the system. And I get to either have the AI call me or I call the AI, and the voice answers. And you get to either try to sell them on something, get to apologize for something that CSI that you did wrong, call them back for a misappointment, call them because they filled out a form, call them because they left a voicemail. And you get to practice and practice, and it grades you on how you're practicing. And you get to constantly do it. And here's the best. Even if you get a sales trainer, he comes in and you do a really good job, 3 months down the road, you kind of slip a little, but we all fall back into our ways. It's not just for new employees. An old employee can go in, I'm going to practice on hitting the curveball. I'm having trouble hitting a slider. I'm going to practice on that. And then I could come back and get better. And then where our AI is coming for the end of this year, because we launched this in about middle of September, but by fourth quarter, what we're going to add to it is, with our call tracking, when it reads and creates a summary for you, it can go, hey, Brian, maybe you should go into this TestTrack because you did a really good job, but you need to work on this.
I love it because for me, I just would have to say I don't mind watching a video once, right? But I would want to practice. And what I've found in my career, I've gotten better at presenting to dealers by presenting to dealers, and not by listening to a sales coach and like, this is how you do the close. Because look, every scenario is different. I love the fact that AI can change the simulation, make it harder or easier, can be more dynamic and unpredictable, whatever the dealer wants. But for me, hey, if I'm driving in a car, I might just want to say, hey, AI, call me about a used car, and especially if it's going to score, I think there'll be some amazing competition.
Oh,
like gamification is like, who is the best in our customer simulator for sales or service or F&I or for used car valuations. I love the idea, and it just feels more sustainable.
I will have to let you try it because it is gamification for us who are testing it, and we have customers testing it too. I like to see, I want to beat every employee in the organization in a good way, and I want them to beat me because you constantly get to practice. And why let someone talk to the most valuable commodity, a customer, before they practiced and practice and practice, and don't practice on real customers? And that to me is really what it's all about. Give me an avenue to engage with. And also it's fun. The other thing is about the videos, like I could watch it once, but we all in this Netflix generation, we sit with our phones when we're on Netflix, or who is that actress? And we look it up. Yep. What you can't do in this, because you're actually having a two-way conversation, you can't multitask, because you say something, a second later, it says something back to you, you're engaging.
I love it.
Forcing me to pay attention.
And listen, over half the people in automotive have ADD. So, we take that with pride, so this will be good. One of the things that I'm pretty excited about because of your robust integration with the CDP, this type of information on how well employees handle calls is going to be important because at the Morgan Auto Group, we're tracking when existing customers are back on the website. Before they fill out a form, we're tracking when customers abandon a form. So maybe they start a service scheduler and then abandon it, right? So only about 1/3 to 40% of people who start a service scheduling app online finish it. It's horrible, by the way. So we have it configured where an alert can go into the service CRM to make a phone call. But the question is who should make the phone call, right? We're thinking about this. And having the API, we could say, okay, who's the best service advisor that's working today that has the highest close rate to give this opportunity? And that routing will be possible in the future case as we integrate higher functionality with the API. I think when dealers understand, especially dealer groups that are data driven, that your API is bidirectional and robust. So, man, the sky's the limit on what we could do, including inbound call pop-ups with data from the CDP. I mean, we have a lot of work to do, Ben, but it's going to be an exciting year ahead because I think the CDP momentum is just starting, it's building, and CallRevu will be alongside many of those case studies on how the integration help improve the customer experience.
It's all about the customer experience. And that's why we are customer obsessed, but we're employee obsessed. Because someone taught me a long time ago, if you treat your employees with respect, you train your employees, you give them opportunities, you unshackle them and you unleash them, then you never have to worry about a customer because they're going to treat customers the same way you treat them as an organization. And so that's what we're trying to do.
But one thing that I don't think you and I have spent much time talking about, even in the past, is the fact with the acquisition, you actually provide dealers with their full phone system platform. And one of the things, excuse me, one of the things that I realized is that dealers really have very sloppy management of their phone lines.
Yep.
I could ask a dealer, how many outbound lines do you guys have? I don't know. Jim knows. And then Jim says, well, I don't really know. When a dealer is realistically looking to upgrade their phone system and they know they have a spaghetti mess, what would you tell them? Because what I heard is it's like, yeah, we have to upgrade a phone system, but it's such a mess. I can't afford anything to go down. I said, well, if anything went down now, you would be really screwed because you don't even know what you have. So what would you tell for a dealer who says, I want a new tech stack. I want this TestTrack. I want call accountability in my marketing. I want my calls to be pushed into a CDP. I need a whole new platform. What confidence would you give them that that would not be a painful switch?
Well, that's like our everyday, right? This is basically table stakes. It's what we do every single day. But what I would say is, if you know you have this problem, have the conversations. Like when you're thinking of changing a CRM, you bring in 3 CRM companies, right?
That's
so
right.
If you are having a problem, there's no commitment. Like if you called us tomorrow and said, hey, our phone system's spaghetti, we don't know what to do, we can actually assess. And we might come back to you and go, everything's fine. I mean, we might be able to do it for less money, but everything's fine. Or we might come back and say to you, here's what we would do. And anyone, whether you're going to work with us for phone system or you're going to go to any of the other competitors, make them come back to you with a proposal going, this is how we're going to guarantee you're not going to lose any calls. This is what our plan for our turnover of like when it comes to us, when it stops going to your last provider. But ask the questions. I mean, your phones are the most valuable thing. Look, we know when the CDK thing happened and some people's phones didn't work, it crippled their business.
Yes.
So imagine if everything's right in the whole world of CRMs, everything else, and your phone system go down. Or because it's spaghetti, how many calls are you getting right now that people just go through your IVR loop and hang up and call the dealer across the street or get into voicemail? You need to make sure your phones are like this streamlined, working really, really good. It should be dial tone, right? It should work every single time, and it should get you to who you need to be as soon as and as fast as possible.
And one other practical thing, no phone system can guarantee a real person was there to pick up. So when a call goes to voicemail, the dealers, please listen. Don't tell me that everyone's being called back. Don't tell me that unless you're checking that. I do have some groups where the reception's checking CallRevu to see those abandoned calls or missed calls or voicemails and calling them back. But what happens when the receptionist is busy? Really understand, look, the data is there. Don't assume that everything is being handled properly. Do not assume that people who go to voicemail are being called back. Don't assume. Take the time to look, because more and more options are available in technology. As Ben was talking about, manager alerts, hot calls, looking at sentiment analysis. Don't say your people are doing a great job on the phone or you're handling problems well. Don't say that unless you're looking at the data. And I think that's the beauty of the platform. If you really want to know, the data's there.
But look, you and I we had a conversation at your last conference. We're talking about all the inbound calls. We're also tracking the outbound calls. But when 20 to 30% of your lines are marked as spam, and you're wondering why they're not being answered or why they're going to voicemail, it's two-way. You need really good hygiene everywhere. If I know that 35% of your calls inbound are going to voicemail, there's things we can do. Add more attendants, route it differently. There's a million things we could do. But when you have 30 or 25% of your calls outbound aren't being answered and you're going, why? And whoa, I could just fix this by, using something that mitigates spam. Why wouldn't you do it?
Exactly. Well, I mean, this call today that we're having is just so timely. Dealers are struggling to remain profitable depending on the brand. Toyota dealers are pretty darn happy, and Stellantis dealers are at their wits' end. But here's what I found. Any dealer can improve their efficiency if they looked at the data. It could be their marketing data. It could be their sales process data. But one of the things that you mentioned, and I've mentioned thousands of times, is that all transactions pretty much today involve the phone.
Yep.
And if you're wondering why you're losing deals to another local brand, Urban Science has a great report called Sales Alert.
Yep.
It shows you which leads in the CRM defected and to which brand. Yep. And people could be scratching their head, like, how come I keep on losing? Well, it could be sales process, could be phone process, could be the spam. Meaning, if the way that we sell cars is the phone, really, the challenge I have for everyone is, how good are you? How disciplined are you to look at your phone data? Right. People say, oh, it's your pricing or it's your photos. Hey, what if those calls are not getting picked up, Ben, as you mentioned? What if your call to connection rate is the lowest in the market? You don't think that's going to have an impact?
What if you are answering every call, but your team isn't trained well enough to handle some questions and objections, and they're not getting the answer the customer wants or needs to hear, and they're going to go somewhere else? Because we've all been there where we get on the phone with someone and you automatically click, they kind of understand, or the person does not hear you and doesn't know what you're looking for, and you're like, yeah, I'm just going to find it somewhere else. And I think, man, if you answer the phone, let's make sure you have everything you need and you're trained right.
I just had a great product idea, Ben. It's just like, could you imagine CallRevu, since CallRevu knows when people are calling to buy a car, which means they're in the CRM, as a lead somewhere. And then each day you're getting a feed from Urban Science on who defected.
Yep.
And then your AI analyzes all the calls that you had with that customer, makes a recommendation, packages that to the general manager. Watch this, something like this. Today we found out that Brian Pasch defected to the Chevy store over here. Here is all the phone communication that Brian had with your team. And based on the calls, it seems like your team wasn't willing to answer the customer's questions specifically without them coming in. I mean, could you imagine that? Like that, I think every general manager, hold on, you're going to tell me who defected within 24, 48 hours of the sale, and then you're going to analyze all the communication, right? Because you can see the leads and the phone.
Tell you with a 90% probability of why they end up going across the street.
Okay, that's a product.
All right, it's a product we'll create together. When I see you in West Palm, we'll talk about it at your event.
Yeah, so today's interview is part of the Road to MRC, the Modern Retailing Conference in Palm Beach, Florida, November 17, 18, 19. Ben and the CallRevu team will be there because they're representing the tools and processes and now even training that will be table stakes for modern retailing in the years ahead. Dealers who are looking for a competitive edge and want to meet with the decision makers, leaders of these companies like Ben, not their junior sales team, come out to MRC to get business done, to get custom integrations done, to get, well, problems solved. So I want to encourage everyone who's listening. The conference sells out every year. So please get your tickets early and book your hotel room because it's at the beautiful O Hotel and Resort in Palm Beach. And more importantly, the best of the best will be there, including technology leaders at CallRevu. So what are you waiting for? Go to modernretailingconference.com. Ben and I will sit down and have a drink with you, right, Ben? We're friends.
But I just, because I've only been to a couple. I've been with CallRevu since my year anniversary just happened. One of the best conferences, might be the best conference that I've attended because everyone wants to collaborate and communicate. It's big enough that you have a lot of people talking about, but small enough that there's still time to sit down, have a drink with someone, engage with it, make friends, learn about the industry, but also really do business. That was my favorite part about the conference.
Well, thank you so much, Ben, for those high praise marks for our events. We've been doing them now for over 15 years. We think we have the right formula to give dealers the value that they want for being out of the dealership. So modernretailingconference.com, get your tickets. Ben, thanks for all you do to listen to the dealers, to support measurement and standards, and now leading the way for a better elevated customer experience through the phones. Thanks for your time. And for everyone who's watching, if you haven't been listening to our podcast, just search the Brian Pasch podcast and you'll hear all of the interviews with the tech leaders, innovators, and entrepreneurs that are coming out to the Modern Retailing Conference. Ben, thanks for your time. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll catch you next time on a podcast interview.